All right, I'm the flatratemaster, and while we talked about service writer screw-ups, let's talk about technician screw-ups. All right, now these are going to be more expensive rather than funny, but the names will not be mentioned other than mine. So enjoy some of the carnage I have seen. First, I'll pick on myself. Now, this one goes back many years. Years ago when I had my own shop, I was working on a actual neighbor of the shop's. I'd known him for years, and he had a blown head gasket on his Dodge 4.7. And this was when I had my shop. Unfortunately, I got pulled off before torquing one of the cam bolts, and I didn't go back and torque it. It cost me like 6 intake valves, another head gasket, a lot more time. Customer was okay, but it was quite a pain in the butt. One of the things I preach when you get pulled off of jobs a lot is to make sure you either leave everything loose or actually torque it. Now, another one, more recent, and unfortunately, sometimes when you get comfortable with a repair, you get a little comfortable with a repair that can be expensive. Now, this one was, I was going behind another tech that had done, not at that shop, but somebody else had replaced the oil cooler on a 3.6. Somebody else had been there. Pretty obvious somebody else had been there. While taking it all apart, the flat bracket that supports the intake on the passenger side was missing a screw. So, assumed it just got lost and wasn't put back. Took it all apart, took the intake off, put tape over the intake ports. Well, apparently, they just dropped that screw into the intake, i.e. on the side of the intake where it was just sitting there for however long that oil cooler had been sitting there. It dropped in the last cylinder on that side of the head. I didn't notice it. I had all the fasteners that I'd actually removed. Now, keep in mind, it was my fault. 100% my fault. I'm not putting blame on the last tech. I should have been more observant. And well, now I check every cylinder before I put tape on there. Make sure there's no debris or bolts in cylinders. Well, it cost a new valve seat and valve, along with me putting a head on it. Unfortunately, that fun. Customer did not pay. I ate a whole lot of hours putting a head on it, but it was my fault. So shop ate the cost. I ate the repair. How flat rate sometimes works. I'm not saying the names of the tech. I'm not saying what shop I worked at, protecting the, guilty, but I'm also not going to call anybody out either. All right, so talk some of the more expensive ones. A technician was trying to replace a CV axle. I believe that's what he was doing, was replacing a CV axle. I might be wrong on the repair, but regardless, he had to pull the CV axle out. CV axle did not want to come out, and he broke the transmission case, cracked it. It started leaking. Shop had to put a new transmission or used transmission in that car because he, broke a transmission trying to get a CV axle out. All right, so this next one, there was a whole lot of happenstance to it. Many things went wrong on the repairs of this vehicle, but the technician didn't perform the oil change that was on the ticket. He also didn't check the oil. Customer went on a road trip, engine locked up, and we had to put a new engine in it. It was just a nightmare car that just kept giving him problems and, details and being rushed. All right, next one is technician was doing a dash pull. And unfortunately, had the column hanging on the ignition switch and, broke it. $1,000 ignition switch. Ouch. got it all back together. And well, then he realized he also broke the clock spring. So very expensive mistakes for the shop. No, the customers was not charged, but several expensive parts were broken in the course of that evap core, I believe. All right, so this one was a calamity of errors. And, well, we ate a starter on this one, I think is all we ate. But anyway, if you've ever worked on the old inline 6 and inline 5 Toyota engines, you know the front crank bolt is usually extremely tight. They sell a special tool for it. Well, we tried doing the starter trick where you brace it against the frame rail, crank the engine over with the starter. Yeah, we smoked the starter. It wasn't me working on the car, I was assisting. We smoked the starter, and then it jammed up. And, well, would not release. We had to disconnect the battery because it was just sitting there hammering against that breaker bar. We had to get the special tool in, put a new starter in it to do a timing belt. Have the proper tools when you're working on cars. But, I mean, literally, starter smoked. And the next time we tried it, it just would not disengage. So solenoid just stayed engaged and everything was smoking until we disconnected the battery. Technician couldn't get a CV axle out of a Volkswagen. He had to redo the rear main seal. So he decided to pull the transmission with the CV axle still in it. And didn't do anything about reseating it, i.e. the joint back into the actual axle because it had come dangling, and proceeded to destroy that CV axle after he put it all back together. As in, the car wouldn't drive because it just sat there and he kept trying to move it until it literally blew up. Then we had to figure out how to get that stub out, which we did, which sucked. So hope you enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for watching. I am the Flat Rate Master.